Hello, my dear friends. Welcome to the gathering. It is David Ault, and wherever you are in this moment right now, I would ask that you take a pause and you take a really deep, deliberate breath. Not a breath as usual, but one that forces you to expand this thing called lungs in a way that you don't normally do. If you would do that with me. Okay, I have a question for you. How did you know how to do that? How did you know to decipher, discern words, language that came from me, a direction, apply the direction, and then work in tandem with the instinctual nature of your respiratory system to take that breath? All happening just in a millisecond, almost an immeasurable amount of time. How did you know how to do that? So I'm going to lay that question over here right now. And I was recalling the first time that I ever heard a teacher or a speaker say, you can't have two unities, meaning in spiritual principle teachings, we talk about wholeness or oneness or congruency. Everything is a part of the whole or one. And so here we are in our human day-to-day lives practicing as if there are two separate things, sort of two unities, perhaps the unity of that which is bad and the unity of that which is good, or the unity of that which is right and the unity of that which is wrong. You can't have two unities. It's like, what? And I remember the first time that I heard that, I went, oh, it was part clever, part tantalizing, part almost like a recognition, like, yeah, yeah. But interestingly, as much as that kind of lit me up in the moment that I first heard that, because I thought, oh, that's a really good way to present this spiritual principle, it still isn't enough to move the concept of that into application. Because I probably what I did, if it was at a conference or a lecture or something, I probably left the conference or left the lecture and I went back out into the world and I observed the world as two separate things, two unities, even though I just shook my head in excitement of the fact that you can't have that. Fascinating, right? So, what then takes us for a ride, or what is it that calls us home so that we become um, less just interested in something and more invested in application? And that's the way life unfolds for you and I. That is our personal evolution. And I think one of the things that takes it from just being um, interesting to becoming invested in it is all sorts of suffering and all sorts of loss and all sorts of things that move us away from the idea that, you're trying to preserve an identity. You're trying to preserve something that can't be preserved because it's not valid. And we all have versions of that. We all have stories of that. We all have our experiences of pain and suffering and loss. And the whole time that this has been going on, there has been this thing called grace. Grace has been used metaphorically in all kinds of ways. And the one that I keep going back, it's like these hands, like the cosmic hands that just hold everything. And all of the chaos and all of the belief systems that are incongruent with what is true are happening. But these hands never go like this, like I'm done with you. It just continues to hold all of that up until we remember, until something becomes just painful enough, sort of bottoming out, that we are willing to let go of the grip in trying to preserve this us and them. And so one of the ways in which I try to be that as a teacher, or as a sharer in the human experience, because I'm walking the same path as you, is finding material that really helps support that in a way that all of us can understand. And I came across this book called Unbinding. I've shared this before. It's by Kathleen Dowling Singh. It became the basis of our summer book club that we are now in week 6 of 8 weeks. And it's so rich and there's so much, and you could not contain the whole book in a summer. So I chose to look at the things that sort of lock us into these two separate positions, right? These systems of suffering. And in Buddhism, systems of suffering are called dependent arisings. They are the things that continue to arise to the surface that prompt us into an ongoing dependency of them, a dependency in separation or dualism. And until something comes along and shakes that cycle up, we continue to do the same thing. And it isn't just in this one little fingernail timeline of what you and I are calling life right now. It's in the perpetual incarnated loops that continue to go on and on and on and on. And we carry out these dependence arisings again until we wake up, until we come back to the home, the true nature of what we are. So, the true nature of what we are. So, here's going to be a lot of words. They're going to sound really good. But again, I want you to notice what happens. So, you are essence. You are true essence. That's the sort of the best words that we can find to really describe the immense infinitude, immeasurability, capacity of what you are. You are oceanic. All of the great poets of all time, all the great wisdom teachers and sages and enlightened beings have told us that we are God in drag. And it sounds so beautiful, doesn't it? It sounds just as beautiful as when that person taught and said, you can't have two unities. There's only one thing. And like, yeah. So I'm telling you, you are oceanic. You are true essence. And that you are the universe. And right now, the universe is Daviding as a teacher on Zoom. It's not David. And so, as much as we go, yeah, as soon as this little talk is over, we will go back into thinking we're separate. So that's what we've been really looking at in book club this summer is like, don't let it stop. Let's go practice now. It's called application. It's practicing, being a practitioner of these reminders of what we are, the true essence. And so in these dependent arisings, we're looking at everything from ignorance to karmic formations, meaning just the automatic absorption of our environment, ancestry, religious origin, culture, again, until we break free from those things, we're still substantiating that there is validity in this us and them. And one of the ones that has been remarkable is the six senses. So the five senses, which is sight, sound, touch, taste, hearing, but also then thought, the sixth sense. Again, noticing that when we reference those things as the self, as me, self-referential sixth senses, that this is a form of this separation, like David is breathing. So in the beginning, I said, I want you to breathe, right? And you think that you are the one doing the breathing. But now what I want to say is instead of smelling or seeing or hearing as a noun, like David is speaking, I want you to observe your speaking or your hearing or your seeing as a verb, just this little switch. And so you can close your eyes while I'm talking right now and just focus on your hearing. And what if it isn't you hearing, but it is the human form of you tapping into the universal capacity to hear. meaning you're borrowing that beautiful gift of hearing right now. You're not the one that's doing the hearing. You're just lending yourself into the genius of hearing. Same with eyesight. You can open your eyes right now and you can look at me and I'm looking at you. And it's like, now think of it not as you are seeing, the noun is seeing, but seeing now becomes a verb. And this instrument that is you is now tapping into the universal gift or capacity, the genius of sight. And you're just resting in that gift. You don't own the gift. It's not your sight. You're just tapping into it. When you are listening to me, it's not your hearing. You're just tapping into the universal experience of hearing. So stay with me. So then when you apply thought, those are not your thoughts. You're just, mind is just using you. The universe is youing as thinking, but they're not your thoughts. They're not self-referential. So therefore, don't own the thought. Just observe the thought. So mind has the capacity to think, but you are not the thinker. The universe is using thinking or mind through you. And so here's where the suffering comes in. If you think that you are the one thinking, if you are thinking that it is your thought, then you are creating a karmic formation, or you are creating a system of suffering, because now you start to believe the thought. If you think that this seeing is your sight and now things start to get blurry in your sight, or through the aging process as we begin to shed less and less this physical body, then all of a sudden there's a system of suffering thinking that I am the one that is losing this thing. When it's not mine, I'm just participating in the universality of the wholeness. Did you follow that? It's pretty liberating. So the author of this book, Unbinding, Kathleen Dowling Singh, said the first time that it really hit home for her was that she was in a university class and a professor was saying to look, when you describe the sky, what is the common thing that you would say? That the sky is blue. And he said, what if that's not really accurate? What if a more poetic, accurate way, or a more aligned way to say it would be this? The universe is skying bluely. She said, in the moment that she heard that, she got it. It transformed this particular thing from a concept into an application, because now she could go out and she could say, the universe is Kathleening through parenting. And so I've been having everyone in book club practice this. I was out, mowing the yard. And as I was mowing, I was like, oh, it's time to practice. So the universe is Daviding through lawn mowing, or the universe is lawn mowing as David. You can interchange it, but you start to see when you shift from self-referential noun, it's me, to a verb. I'm just participating in the universal expressions and components using all of these six senses. I don't own them. Again, let me show you the impact of this. Been working with somebody for a long time about grief. And one of the things that perpetuates the system of suffering is the ownership of the grief. My grief, my grief, my pain, my story. And I sit with that until something instinctually tells me, okay, now it's time to turn the page. I trust that I'm not rushing the process, that I'm sort of, there's a point in all of our relationship where I allow the thing to be emptied out. And when there's a sufficient emptying out of the story, then I say, let's play with something. Instead of claiming it as my pain, let's just call it the pain. just like there is the hearing and the sight and the smell and the thought. I don't own it. And so when I take pain or the experience of pain, because that's baked into being human, if I apply self-referential to that and make it mine, my pain, then the system of suffering with that is that the thing I crave, which is the freedom of the pain, will never happen because now I'm owning it. But if I can go, oh, there is the pain, the same pain that every other sentient being has experienced in human form. I don't own it. I don't claim it. It's just washing through me right now as the experience of loss. And it's not my loss, it's just loss. Again, which is just baked into the human experience. You see where I'm going with all of this? And so in the beginning, when I said I asked you to breathe, what is it that actually is breathing? It's the universe just breathing through you. And you are tapping into the availability of that. Why tell you all of this? I continue to play, experiment with what does it mean to let go of identity? And I believe just like you, we all get caught up in, oh my God, will enough people watch my video? Will enough people be interested in my thing, my creative path? Will people remember me? The self-referential component of trying to preserve the identity of this is so limiting and yet so powerfully influential in all of us because we have forgotten. We have forgotten that I'm not David. I'm the universe Daviding right now. But if I try to hold on to David as an identity, I'm going to suffer. If I try to spend a lot of mental energy trying to find a way to stay relevant, to hold on to the identity, to the credentials, to all of the things, if I try to preserve that, it's as if I'm trying to build systems and ways to hold out the ocean or to hold out the universe that has delighted in the time it was mine in order to express it. But if I'm so locked into me, preserve, 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 then that system of suffering is just going to continue. So I want to continue to find a way to be the catalyst to help dissolve the systems of suffering. And it doesn't have to be as me, as David, as anything previous to this moment. And so it's weird because it's like there's no place to stand. If I don't try to preserve identity, where do I belong? Who am I? What is mine? And that's sort of the beauty of letting go of all of that. Because trying to find a place to stand and define these things is, again, trying to substantiate this us and them, this ownership, when I'm oceanic. You are oceanic. You are the universe. This may be a lot. This may be a lot, but I feel that more and more people are ready. I know that more and more people are going, I don't know what to do anymore. I am so lost. Everything that I valued or thought was true seems to be stripped away. And hear me when I say this. That's a really good place to be. Because I think when we all get there, when we all look at just how deeply we want to preserve, then when we lend ourselves to what we really are, which is the universe, which is oceanic, then we are far more reminded, equipped, if you will, to be those vessels and those channels for the things that we understand peace to be, the things that we understand equality to be, the the tangible solutions to suffering from hunger and homelessness and disease. Those things will always exist. And yet, by letting go of our need to do it our way or to have it look a certain way, to lend ourselves into the inevitable mystery of the wholeness, the infinitude that just can't wait to express through you and I when we give it opportunity to do so, then paradoxically, everything that we've been fighting for that feels just will begin to arise, not through fighting, but through allowing. I'm recalling the scripture that says, for those who have ears to hear, let them hear. If this resonates with you this week, practice the thing simply by not looking at your six senses as a noun, but as a verb. Just take a moment and go, the universe is breathing as David. And just be in awe of breath. The universe is seeing as David, as you. And just be in awe of sight. What might you notice differently? Hearing, thought, but don't own the thought. You are not the owner of the thought. You are not the thinker of the thought. Then what is? There's something the true essence is. If you are at a place where you understand that this isn't silly or just, some type of spiritual mumbo jumbo, but a call to come home, then I'm here. The universe, as David, is here to continue to remind you of just how magnificent you are. Much love.